Already mic testing, mic testing. Okay, perfect. Let me go to my main camera. Already we're live, and as you guys can tell by the title and thumbnail, today I'm going to be working on more game logic and Unreal Engine 5 using C++. And that said, last stream I did like work on Blender and tried making a failed mesh of like a shield. I am going to get much better in that stuff, guys. That said, I just came from college. That's why my stream is a little later than my usual time. And the stream before yesterday's stream, which was I think last Monday, I actually worked on adding the shoot system where like my player can actually shoot a target and all that stuff and the target takes damage and all that. So today I'm going to work on that logic as well. Speaking of which, let's go to my giveaway screen. There we go. Hi doing Anonymous, is that pronounce your name? I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, that's it. Let me go ahead and get that lower, get that down as well. Okay, and say something like, let's say I'm live again, exclamation. Okay, that said, I want to work on the content that we were working on before my Blender stream, where I was learning. Let's go with something like where I was learning. Excuse me, guys, to add a attacking skill. Let's say something like skill to my character, and that my target can take damage, ... Okay, I created a new project. So can we do one step at a time, question mark? Okay, that's it. Let's see. And guys, I think I have like way too many typos up here. That's it. Welcome back to the dojo. The stream is live, the project is fresh, and the path to mastery begins with a single strike. The one who moves a mountain begins by carrying small rocks. I'm pretty sure this step I can fix it, guys. I did not actually see the author name because this quote was said so many times. That said, starting a new project is the perfect time to build clean professional foundation, and the reason I am like starting from like a brand new code is because I actually forgot the kind of terminology and logic that I used before yesterday, because that was like the first time that I actually worked on actually adding an attack system where my NPC takes damage. That said, we aren't just hacking code together, we're architecturing a combat system. Since we're starting from scratch, we will go one step at a time. So our logic is flawless. Step 1, the interface. Damage infrastructures. Before the player can attack the target must be able to receive. Instead of making a function in one class, we want to make the player hit anything a NPC creates or a barrel. I see. Your task, create a NPC class, okay? Base actor, so it's an actor class, okay? And define the variables. Create the NPC class, create a new C++ class inherited from a actor, call it NPC. The header file.npc, okay? We need to make sure the health and shield are public so the player can interact with them or provide a public function to handle it. Okay, so my health and shield must be public. Health and shield are public. Okay, so that's public. Receive damage is a public function. Health and shield are protected. Health and shield are public. Health shield, isn't that protected? Source file npc.c++. Write the logic for how the NPC handles the hit. Okay. Void a NPC receive damage. I gotta add the regular damage function. Sensei's this challenge. I want you to get the NPC class compiled and be placed in your level. Use a simple cube or sphere. Okay, it's as it's mesh in the editor, so we have to aim at it. Okay, so use a cube or a sphere. I see. So I could just go to my Unreal Engine to start off. Maybe just shrink my... There we go, details panel. Now, under my tools, I'm gonna go ahead and create a C++ class. Let's call it something like an actor. And then I'm gonna be calling this something like NPC, because my actor is technically gonna be my NPC. Then I create a class. And then I'm gonna wait for this to say reload all. Let's remove my Unreal Engine configurations from here. There we go. Okay, now it's gonna say me to reload all. Okay, it's adding code to project, generating project files. There we go, it says live compiling completed. Let's go out of it here. Let's go ahead and reload all. Now, about the functionality part, I will be looking at the reference every once in a while to really know what kind of content do I really add here, because I actually did not know much about that. That said, if my memory is correct, I firstly need to go ahead and create a void function called receive damage. I might add a comment here that says something like functions. Let's go with something like function. So I'm gonna create a white function called something like receive damage. Actually, receive hit would make much more sense because I will be having shields that would like literally be taking damage. That requires a parameter of damage. I could go with a floating point parameter of damage. There we go. And then I'm gonna end this way semicolon. Now, once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm assuming at parameters here. This is the part where I might need the reference for this part. So I needed to create a U property where I can edit them anywhere for both my health and my shield. So let's go with something like a U property. Maybe I add a bunch of spaces. There we go. I'm gonna go ahead and create a U property. Now my U property is gonna, let's say, I want my U property to be edit anywhere. Okay, so okay, bro, are you post develop, bro? Legend, bro, legend. Honestly, guys, I'm gonna be assuming that was like what you would call it, a kind of compliments, a kind of compliments. I appreciate you. BSL, guys, I'm awful at reading anything except English. Like I was learning Spanish, but then it's like I'm kind of awful with it. Speaking of which, guys, by college it like kind of messed up with my head when it comes to C++ because I took like a basic programming course where I'm learning Python and all that stuff. So apparently I gotta work with Python and C++ at the same time. That's kind of annoying. Okay, that's it. Next time, I'm going to go with something like blueprint read only. Let's go ahead and set this to be blueprint read only. Lastly, I'm going to add a category to like categorize / organize my U property here. Let's say my category is going to be under NPC stats. Let's go with NPC stats because my NPC is going to be requiring stats as well. Then I'm going to create a floating point variable called something like max HP. My NPC's max health is going to be something like maybe 250, ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to create another U property because my NPC has one max health and one current health. My current health is always going to be equal to max health. That said, it's always going to be equal to max health unless I actually attack him or do something that's going to explicitly like reduce his health. Let's say let's go with U property, P-E-R-T-Y, there we go with it, bro, parentheses. There, I'm going to make I want my current health, I want to be able to edit that anywhere. I want it to be blueprint read only. Can we use AI instead of manually? I mean, yeah, sure. For writing easy code like this, we can actually like use AI and all that stuff. But then I would recommend to write it on our own when we're actually in the learning process because getting a muscle memory, like people do say that actually writing code is the easier part. The part that's actually tough is like the thinking part and the problem solving part. So if you actually understand the problem solving part and you're good with like writing the syntax and all that stuff, you guys could use AI to get the tedious stuff out of the way. But if you guys are like new to programming, I would recommend to only use AI for learning something if you didn't really understand that stuff. So like you could use AI to learn, but then I would recommend to actually type this stuff out so you guys actually get used to how to write the syntax and all that stuff. But the very important part is like you guys should be able to problem solve. That's it. Next, I'm going to go ahead and call this something like current HP, which is going to be something like, let's say max HP. I'm going to go with max HP. Okay, now here's the thing. Instead of current HP, I might have a floating point for a shield because my current HP, I might actually add in my C++ file. Let's say shield is going to be something like 50, ending with a semicolon. Okay, once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and in Control S, save the code, go to my NPC's C++ file. And now this is where the trickier part comes in. Let's see. So if I go ahead and open Gemini here, there is like a shield and a health for my stats up here, and this is health, it's not like max health, so I'm assuming I gotta go ahead and add a current HP as well. I could go up here because even though Gemini said that I could just directly go with health, it's the same exact thing, but in case I want my NPC's health to regenerate, it would be much better if I have a whole variable name. Let's go with something like current HP. There we go. My current HP is going to be equal to my max HP, ending with a semicolon. And then I'm going to hit Control S to save the code. Now let's go ahead and open my Gemini here. My friend, he's using AI all the time and he's doing great. I mean, sure, AI is like pretty good, but then the thing that AI really lacks is like AI can't actually critically think. The only thing AI can actually program is what it's told to program or what it's told to do. For example, if my AI's intelligence level is like at level 5 in a scale of 10 or something, it cannot actually innovate stuff and like invent new things and all that, for that we do need humans. And if humans are completely dependent on AI, they won't like have the when I say mental capability to like critically think. So I'd say that we should like augment ourselves with AI and like use AI to actually get better and all that stuff. That said, I go ahead and define the function that I've declared in my C++ file, okay, which requires a floating point damage. I check if my shield has some HP, then my shield takes damage. Else if my health minus damage, okay, and finishing engine, if health is less than 0, destroy, eliminate. Okay, is destroy like a function? Because I have never heard of that. I gotta like work with that. But then I think the logic is like pretty straightforward. So let's go under my begin play. Okay, under my begin play, yeah, AI also limited somewhere, I think. Yeah, actually that does make sense. That's it. I'm gonna go ahead and add a comment here. Let's say something like receive damage function. There we go. Now for my receive damage function, I'm gonna go ahead and get my function. So get my white function from inside of my ANPCs class. I want to go ahead and edit the receive hits function. There we go. I might call this receive hit instead of damage. There we go. My receive hits function does require a floating point parameter of a damage, and then I'm going to go with the pair of curly braces. Now, why do I see a red underline? I'm pretty sure it's just my editor. So inside my receive hit, I'm going to add an if statement to check something. I'm going to check if my shield's HP, if my shield is greater than 0, which it does start at 50, then I'm going to go ahead and do something. I'm going to go with something like shield minus damage. And then I'm going to end this with a semicolon. And then let's go with an else clause here. So I'm going to go with something like else if my shield's HP is not actually if my shield's HP is less than or equal to 0, I'm going to do something here. I'm going to add a pair of curly braces, and this time my current HP takes damage. Let's go with current HP minus damage, ending with a semicolon. How old are you? Honestly, I am like 18 years old. I like turned 18 this January 5th. That's it, guys. I actually did not feel like 18. I feel like I don't even know how old I feel like. I think like I'm 20 or something, but my original age is 18, guys. That's it. Let's see. So that is current HP. Okay. And I might actually add a G engine here. This is not like really important. This is to display some kind of text on my window. So I'm going to go with something like add on screen debug message. So I'm going to add a debug message on my screen. This function requires a few parameters. The first is going to be a key. This is the first text that I want to display on my window. The second is going to be a time. I want to display this in my text as soon as it happens. So as soon as I run my program, so at 0.0 seconds. The third parameter is going to be a color. So I'm going to go with something like a F color. The C must be capital. There we go. Okay, and my color, let's say, is going to be something like blue because my shield took damage. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add a text. I might go with something like a F string. Let's go with something like a F string with a scope resolution operator of something like printf. Or let's go with something like printf. I want to go ahead and print something. Let's go with it, bro. Parentheses, I'm going to print a text. My text is going to be something like shields, NPC shield. I'm going to go with something like NPC shield. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and exit my pair of parentheses. Go with a comma and then add my, let's say something like shields as variable here. Then I end this with a semicolon. Okay, maybe I want my shield to be like a floating point, so I might go with something like %f. Okay, you know, coding 80% more than me, guys. I feel like that is kind of an overkill. I mean, I do know the basic syntax and all that, but I still feel like, guys, I'm kind of a beginner right now. I mean, I'd say like out of these how many days did I spend? Like, what day is this? I think it's like day 130 of like learning C++ in general. I think I've learned like a lot, but then I still think there's a lot more that I need to work on. That's the next step. We're going to go with another G engine. Okay, let's go with an arrow mark operator and point it towards another add-on screen debug message. So I'm going to add another debug message. This one's key is going to be 2 because this is like my second debug message. I want the time to be 0.0. I want the color to this time, let's say, be something like red because my actual HP is taking damage. It'd just be appropriate if the color was red, guys. That's the next step. Let's go with something like string. I want to go ahead and print a string. My string is going to go ahead and require a text, so I'm going to add my text function. And maybe also add a scope resolution operator here. There we go. Okay, what programming language is this? Honestly, it is like C++ and Unreal Engine. Okay, let's go with something like printf. And guys, the worst part is in my college, I'm learning Python, and like in my streams, I'm doing C++. It's like confusing me way too much. Okay, because like usually in Python, like for a regular print statement, I could go ahead and just say something like print hello world, and I don't even need any kind of semicolons. But in C++, I gotta add a standard console output with an insertion operator that says something like hello world. I mean, it's not all that different because this is like easy. I might go with another insertion operator of a standard end line ending with a semicolon. That's like in like C++, but in the other hand, in Unreal Engine, there are two different ways. Either I could go with something like a text, but I do gotta display it as well. I could go with something like text, hello world, there we go. This is if I wanna whatchamacallit, display something in my output logs, but if I wanna display something on my screen, then I like gotta like copy this, paste this here. There we go. Okay, and then let's change the text to something like hello world. There we go. These are different kind of variations. Python is easy, C++ is easy as well. The Unreal Engine have two different ways. I won't say it's tough, but it kind of like gets me confused at times. Okay, that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and call my text something like current HP. Let's go with something like NPC HP. Okay, my NPC's health is gonna be in a percent floating point as well. I'm gonna go with something like a comma of my current health variable. There we go. Okay, perfect. And then let's go ahead and fact check my spelling. F string, okay, and then I have a sizable string, a dynamic sizable string, okay, I have a text, NPC HP, then I add a parentheses and go with my current health is undefined. Okay, it's current HP, not health. There we go. It's just the variable name, guys. Okay, then let's go ahead and add this way, semicolon. Okay, and then I'm assuming, should I add like another if statement here that just destroys my stuff? I could go ahead and try that. Let's go with something like if a parentheses. If my current HP, let's say if my player's current HP is, let me say something like less than 0. If my HP goes below 0, then I want to do something. I want to destroy. And I have never used the destroy function in Unreal Engine. Destroys this actor returns true if the actor is destroyed or already marked for destruction, false. If indestructible destruction is latent, it occurs at the end of the take parameters being at first. Also, it destroys my entire actor. I want to try this out. Let's hit Control S to save the code, Control S to save the code. Let's open my Unreal Engine real quick. Now, inside my Unreal Engine, the very basic things that I like to do. Firstly, I like to hit R and scale my floor a bit lower because I feel like I do not like big floors. Whoops, let's hit Control Z. I want to get it from the center there. Now I'm going to get close to my floor. There we go, that's good. Okay, let's go lower. Okay, and then I'm going to go to my content drawer. In my content drawer under my C/C++ file, I should go ahead and see my NPC actor. I can just drag him here. My NPC actor does exist here. Now, for my NPC's actor, I'm going to add a static mesh. Excuse me, guys, there we go. My static mesh is, let's say, going to be a cube. Okay, let's go with a cube. And luckily, Unreal Engine like actually Unreal Engine already has a free cube, so I wouldn't have to like add my own meshes. But I do have my meshes if push did come to shove. Let's go with R. I want to decrease the size of my cube, and then I'm gonna hit W, get my cube a little lower. There. Okay, let me go lower. Guys, I want to use my other mouse. I might actually go with my other mouse. Okay, hold up, guys. Let me use my other mouse. Because usually for streaming, I use this other because this mouse does are kind of cranky at times. There. There we go. This mouse should be much better. Okay, perfect. So, what is the size? Is it kind of big? Let's go ahead and get this a bit lower. So there we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and live compile real quick. Let's go with something like live compile. Okay, and I don't have a player yet. It's live compiling here. I don't have like my character yet, so I'm going to use my default camera that Unreal Engine actually gives us. It says build failed, shield minus damage, and then current HP minus damage. In that case, instead of going with minus, I'm going to use the augmented assignment operator, which is minus equals to. There we go. Okay, let's hit Control S to save the code, open Unreal Engine, and now let's live compile. Okay, let's see. So it says results succeeded, perfect. Now let's go ahead and run the code real quick. There we go, live coding succeeded. I'm gonna turn back. Whoops. Okay, so here is my cube. Okay, it's not displaying any kind of text on my window just yet. Why could that be? Let's think. Okay, probably because my shield's HP is never greater than 0. I mean, it should always be greater than 0, so it says 250. What if I go to my properties here and type something like NPC? So there we go. I'm going to click NPC and type something like NPC. There, so I see my NPC's max stats. I can edit it anywhere. That's a good thing. The default stuff is 250. Is he AI generated? Guys, I think that's a compliment. I'm actually not AI generated. That said, I did have a short, like, I think 2 or 3 months ago where someone else even asked the same question. It's kind of fun, though. Okay, howdy, Pixels. I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, this is actually kind of good. But then I don't see my display on the window. Howdy, Cosmo. I appreciate you joining the stream as well. Okay, that said, once I'm done with this part, my G engine does not display on my window. Gotta fix that. And then current HP. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. But before I actually go ahead and get the other instructions as well, I want to go ahead and create another class. So I'm going to choose, go to C++. Let's create a character class. So I'm going to go ahead and call this something like my player, or should I go with something like alien? Alien is kind of complicating. What should I name my character? Should I name him something like, I don't know. Guys, I'm just going to pick a random name. Maybe, how does Zach sound? Jack, I don't know. Maybe I'll go with something like player, fine. Player is already taken. Guys, the naming part is the awfulest thing. Character, fine. It's taken? Okay, let's think. Guys, give me a name recommendation. Now, let's make GTA 7. Guys, make GTA 7 is kind of crazy. Maybe I might name this something like Pixels. Guys, I don't know what name to keep. I'll just name it something like Pixels. And then let's go ahead and create. Although my actual character class is not really made in Pixels. Okay, adding to code. Let's go ahead and reload all. Okay, perfect. Now, before I add some context, since I will be using enhanced inputs to move my player, I'm going to go to my content drawer and create a few things. So under my content section, I'm going to right click and let's say add a new folder. I'm going to call this something like input. Speaking of which, I think I got to reload again. I don't? Okay. I'm going to name this input. Now let's go ahead and right click and I'm going to add a input mapping context. Let's go with something like mapping context. Okay, and I'm going to tell you guys in a bit what this means. I'm going to name this something like IMC default because if I were to double click my, why did I name it IMG? Let's go with IMC underscore default. If I were to double click my IMC default, this is basically where I go ahead and add all my key controls. Like, I'm going to go ahead and add my key controls just like the legacy inputs, but like much more convenient. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and right click again. I'm going to go ahead and add a action input. Let's go with something like a input action. I'm going to call it something like IA move. IA basically stands for input action. And then let's go to my IMC default. Before that, I'm going to double click my IA move and change it to something like a 2-dimensional vector. Okay, now I'm going to click the plus in my mapping profiles. Click a plus here as well. There we go. I'm going to click extend my none there and set that to be IA move. Now I want 4 moving inputs, which is going to be using W, using S, using A and D. That's going to be W, that's going to be S, that's going to be A, and that's going to be D. Now for my W, basically what the W and S does, it either moves me forward or backwards. So I would have to add a modifier of a Swiss input because basically the Swiss input access value gives me access to move in the y-axis. Okay, that's pretty much it. And then I'm going to go with S. S, I want to go backwards. So I will be adding a modifier for Swiss input. But now my S is going to move me in the same exact direction as my Y. So I got to go ahead and add another modifier called something like negate. So negative direction, the opposite direction of my original Swiss input. Why not enhanced input mapping context? Why not enhanced input mapping? I mean, we could like name it like the names are actually depends like on the user. Like many people name these stuff as like IA move and like IMC default, but you could go ahead and name it something like input mapping context and all that stuff. I just think it gets a bit more complicating when you have like a bigger project and have like bigger names. I feel like IA stands for input action, move stands for move, and then IMC stands for input mapping context, and then underscore default. This is my default input mapping context. Okay, that said, once I'm done with that, for my A, I'm going to go ahead and let's say add a modifier of negates. And that's pretty much it for everything. Because I didn't add a Swiss input axis. If I don't add a Swiss input axis, I'm going to be moving in the x-axis. So whichever direction my D is going to move, the A is going to move in the negative direction of that. If that made any sense, guys. And I think that was pretty much it. Now, I'm going to go to my characters as header files, and under my begin play, I want to add a U property. Let's go with something like a comment that says something like, this is going to be the U property for my IA move. Or if I wanted to be a bit more clear, I could just go with something like move action. For my move action, I'm going to go ahead and let's say create a U property. There we go. Where I want my move actions as U property, I want to be able to edit it anywhere, which means I want to be able to edit in my blueprint as well. I want it to be blueprint read only. My blueprint can only read it. And guys, by edit anywhere, I mean I could edit it in like my details panel here as well. For example, if I were to go to my NPC and type something like stats, I can edit these stats like inside my max HP. In the other hand, if I went up here and set this U property to be something like let's see, visible anywhere and not edit anywhere, then I would be able to see it in my details panel, but not actually edit it there, if that makes any sense. That said, I want to categorize my move action inside of a category. And this category is basically going to be my details panel. I'm going to call it something like input. And that's about it. And then let's say I want to create a few classes. Here's the thing, there are two ways to do this. The first way is I could create a class called something like input action, which is gonna end with a semicolon, or I could go ahead and include my stuff. For example, if I want to go ahead and create a class for my camera components, let's go with camera components, ending with a semicolon. If I did not want to create a class here, all I had to do was include something from my camera. I want to include the camera components as header files. Now, the reason I don't really want to include my camera component in camera components, this is going to be camera component inside my header files, is because the header file is only for declaring stuff. We define everything inside our C++ file. So instead of actually having my entire header file inside my .h file, instead of having my entire cameras as header files inside of my pixels as header files, I'm going to be including my stuff in my C++ and just say my compiler that these things does exist, guys. That was actually a mouthful. That's it, guys. I am not a professional teacher. This is just me trying to explain myself. That said, I'm going to go with something like input action, and then let's create a class here called something like input mapping context. And this name might be familiar, guys. We literally just went over it. That's it. So input action, input mapping context, camera components. I might need to add a spring arm component as well, because I will be creating a camera so my player can see from my camera's point of view instead of like the default camera that's assigned to my player. Camera, I think I spelled component wrong. C-O-M-P-O-N-E-N-T. There. So input action, input mapping context, C-A-M-E-R-A-C-O-M-P-O-N-E-N-T, camera components, spring arm components. And then I might want to create a structure for something like F. F stands for structure, by the way. Input, action, value. It's too easy. That's what I'm saying, guys. Okay, and then let's go ahead and this way, semicolon. Once we understand the basic concepts, it's kind of a piece of cake. But then when we're trying to figure it out, it's kind of a nightmare. That said, now once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and let's say create a input action, okay, which is going to be represented by a pointer called something like move action, ending with a semicolon. And that's pretty much it. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and add another U property for my look action, because I do want to rotate depending on what button I'm clicking. But the only time I do want to rotate if I click my right mouse button. So I might do that real quick. Let's go with something like RMB action. Okay, and since I want to create another input action, I'm gonna go to my Unreal Engine. Whoops, I closed my Visual Studio. I want to go to my Unreal Engine. I want to go to my content browser. Right click. I'm gonna add another action. This time my action is gonna be for something like RMB, right mouse button, underscore. Should I just go with I underscore RMB? There we go. Okay, I was thinking I'll add RMB action, but it's the same thing. So input action for my right mouse button. I'm gonna double click it. This is gonna be a digital boolean because while I'm clicking my button, it's gonna be set to true. When I don't click my button anymore, it's gonna change to false and all that stuff. That's it. That's like right about it. I'm gonna go to my IMC default, click the plus button here. Oops, not here. Delete that. Click a plus in my mappings. I'm gonna add another mapping, this time for my RMB. I'm gonna go ahead and extend this, maybe close my IA move. And now, I wanna go ahead and set this to be my right mouse button. So I'm gonna click my right mouse button. Or if you guys don't know how to do that, you guys could just type something like right mouse button. And you guys would get the exact same thing. Okay, perfect. That's about it. Now I'm gonna go back to my code. In my code, I'm gonna create a U property. Okay, where I want my right mouse button to be edit anywhere. I want to be able to edit this content even inside of my even inside of my details panel. I want it to be blueprint read only. Have you started lead code? Actually, I haven't like worked on lead code. I have been like holding myself back because I want to have like a different specific series where I just like work with lead code questions. Guys, I've been like saying that ever since my Python for 100 series, which was like, I think almost a year ago. Let's go with something like category that is going to be set to something like input, ending with a semicolon. But I do want to work with lead code. I do want to do it on stream though, because for the time being, I do like have college as well. Where guys, I did like take so many classes, so I'm kind of figuring my classes out and also like doing the streaming. So I feel like lead code it's going to be waiting until I'm maybe done with my college type stuff. Gonna go with something like RMB. Let's go with RMB RMB action. There we go. And guys, I might like really add a community post after this series that before I have my series where I make a chatbot, should I have a series where I only work on lead code questions? That would be kind of fun. Okay, that's it. I have my move action. I have my RMB action. Now I'm gonna open my Unreal Engine again. This time I want to go ahead and create another, let's say another action. This time my action is going to be called something like look action. So I'm going to go with something like IA underscore look because I want to either look towards the left, towards the right, up or down, depending on where my mouse moves in like which axis. If that made any sense, guys. Since I'm doing that, this is going to be a 2D vector as well because I want to work with a 2D vector, x-axis, y-axis. In the other hand, the 3D vector is in charge of also moving in the z-axis in case I want to add like a fly logic or something. That's it. I'm gonna go here and add a plus. Now inside my plus, I'm gonna close that. There we go. I'm gonna go ahead and set this to IA look. Inside my IA look, let's say I want to go ahead and look forward or backwards depending on where my mouse moves in the x-axis. Actually, I want to look left and right depending on where my mouse moves in the x-axis. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and let's say add a modifier of Swiss input. Maybe not Swiss input, I might not need any modifier here. I'm gonna click the plus button. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add one for my y-axis. Well, and now a really key information where I kept messing up with this part. It's like I will be moving and rotating in the exact same axis in only my x-axis unless I don't go ahead and add a Swiss input modifier here. I want to use my y-axis to work with the y-axis, and the Swiss input axis value gives me access to the y-axis. If that made any sense. And no Swiss input is going to be x-axis. That's it. Once I'm done with that, that's about it. I'm going to go back to my header files. Let's add a comment that says something like look action. For my look action, I'm going to create a U property. Okay, where I want my look action to be edit anywhere. I want to go ahead and edit anywhere. I want it to be blueprint read only. I only want my blueprint to be able to read this, not edit it. Lastly, I want my category to be equal to something like input. Input, there we go. ending with a semicolon. Now, there's nothing else that I can think of. Sure, I want to add stamina logic where I click Q and all that stuff to move and all. But I want to check if this part works first, so I'm not going to add anything else. Instead, I'm going to add a comment here called something like Boolean checks. This is going to be my Boolean variable checks, where I want to go ahead and firstly check. Before I check, what up guys, I forgot to actually add a input action, which is going to be represented by a pointer called something like look action. There we go. And maybe while I'm at this, I'm going to end this with a semicolon, go all the way up here, and add a comment that says something like default mapping. There we go. Default mapping is basically my IMC default that I created. For example, I'm going to go with the property with a pair of parentheses, where again, I want to be able to edit it anywhere. I want it to be blueprint read only. Okay, and lastly, I want my category, I want it to be categorized in, let's say, my inputs section. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and add something like the input mapping context. This is going to be represented by a pointer called something like default mapping. Okay, because guys, without this, none of my inputs are actually going to be registered, because this is really important for the enhanced input systems. Said what operating system you use. Honestly, I am using Windows. That's it. Howdy Pixels, I appreciate you joining the stream. Okay, speaking of which, once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and create a Boolean value or a Boolean variable called something like, it's going to be a Boolean variable, so I'm going to prefix it with a B. Let's go with something like is, I don't know, should I go with something like Boolean of is move action, or I might go with something like is RMP pressed. It's gonna initially be set to false because when I start my game, I don't want my RMP to be pressed. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and let's say add another function. Maybe I just need one Boolean variable for now. Next up, once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and add another comment that says something like Boolean function. Okay, now for my Boolean function, I don't know what else to call this. I might go with something like a void function called something like is, let's go with something like is RMB. Let's go with RMB underscore press. Is my RMB pressed function with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon. Is RMB pressed, is right mouse button pressed. There. And then I could go with something like another function called something like is. Let's go with is RMB released. Okay, so is RMB pressed and is RMB released. What are you creating? Honestly, I am like working on a, I would say like a FPS, an FPS game logic type stuff where like I have a first person perspective player who's going to be either shooting my player or like shooting my other object, or maybe attacking my other object. And depending on which attack or which skill my player use, my target is going to lose health. Once it's at 0 HP, it's going to like disappear type stuff. That's it, guys. I'm not like 100% sure about the logic and all that stuff, so I'm just going with the basics. Okay, that's let's see. And I did not actually work with much animation and all that. I gotta do that. Maybe next Tuesday I might spend more time in Blender, unless you guys want me to do something else for the Tuesday's stream. And that said, I'm gonna go ahead and let's say add my regular functions now. For example, I'm gonna go ahead and have a function, a void function for something like move. That requires a constant parameter of, let's say, something like f input action value to, and guys, in case my stream time kind of decreases right now, that is because I have like a lot of college stuff to do. Okay, let's go with something like value ending with a semicolon. But I will be trying to like stream every single day for at least 2 hours type stuff, or I guess 2 hours is going to be like an overkill as well. That's it. Let's go with something like another void function. This is going to be for something like look. My look function requires a constant parameter of something like f input action value that requires the memory address of, let's say, something like value. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Okay, just curious, what was the last project you worked on and completed? Actually, the project that I completed was probably my SDL project. If you do go to my channel and go to the playlist and check my final SDL project, where I could actually show you guys right now. Let's go ahead and open my Visual Studio 2022 again. I should try 2026. Okay, this is gonna be way too low. This is all my project. This is C++ practice, main.c++. I hate the fact that I did not really name my projects anything. There we go. This is my C++ practice. If I were to go ahead and run the code here, I did work with like SDL and all that other libraries here. I get my compiler here and then waiting for my actual window to compile. We're pretty sure this is like a dice roller. What up, guys? Let me exit this and run it again. There we go. Okay, wait, this is a different project, guys, where I can actually move all that stuff. Wait, hold up, guys. This is like a different project. So, trying to find the actual project. This is Python. That's console project. My project.sln. Okay, I mean, this month. My project.sln. There we go, main.sln. Main.sln couldn't be loaded. Do you want to remove the reference from the list? Hold up, guys. Like, I did not. I forgot to like name my project something. Let me think. Unreal project, console application, Python project. I'm positive I saved it. STL3. There we go. STL3 project. Okay, yeah, it was this. Let's go ahead and run the code real quick. Now, I get my window here, and I get my console here. So in my console, these are the file paths of my PNGs. Every time I hit something like enter, I have a random dice that rolls and all that stuff, but my total is always decided in my console. For example, you roll 2 enemies, this thing, and then my enemy score and all that stuff. Okay, and then later on, I forgot what other buttons, like I forgot how to play this game, but I did like make it. And these are like our totals here. So my player's total is 43 and enemy's total is 45. And you could like go on and on and on again. And it keeps like telling my player score and all that stuff, what I roll, what enemy rolls, player total, enemy total. If that makes any sense, guys. This was a pretty fun project, but when I made this project, I realized that SDL is getting kind of easy and all that stuff, so I thought there wouldn't be any point to like working with it, because I didn't want to actually stick with SDL. I wanted to like work with a harder game engine, so I did actually move on to Unreal, because I thought that I'd make more progress if I spend my time working with like an actual game engine. Is there any your top fave demo which you can show us real quick? I mean, I have like a bunch, but then I don't think I actually know where it is. It's somewhere inside my Visual Studio. I gotta like search that up because I did not have multiple files. I did like upload those files and save it somewhere. There was a file like in PyGames, but that was in my like different PC. If you guys want, you guys could either check my Python for 100 days week 14's YouTube video, or my Python for 100 days day 100's live stream, or like a short on my Python for 100 days. I showed you guys the game that I made. That was like me trying to learn program as an absolute beginner, but Python like was my first language. After 100 days, I did make a battling style game where I had health bars, buff bars, meals, coins, and like voice actings and all that stuff. Okay, guys, that was like a lot to actually make a mouthful of. But it wasn't like a real application. I just made the basic logic because I did not convert it to an app. That's it. Once I'm done with that, I forgot where I was actually. Guys, I think I wasted way too much time in saying that. Okay, let's go with something like a function. Now, I'm gonna go to my C++ file. But before I go to C++, there might be a few more U properties that I might want to add. For example, I could go ahead and add a U property for my camera boom. For my camera boom, I'm gonna go ahead and add a U property. There we go. There, I want my camera boom, which is basically my spring arm component, to be visible anywhere. I want it to be visible anywhere. I want it to be blueprint read only. I only want my blueprint to be able to read it. Okay, and lastly, I want my category to be equal to something like camera. Okay, what up, guys? Maybe let's go ahead and change this. There we go, to something like category. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and create something like a spring arm component. Let's go with something like a spring. Okay, should I go ahead and name this something like U? I could go ahead and name this something like U camera component, U spring arm component. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and change this to something like U camera, U spring arm. There we go. Let's go with something like U spring arm component, which is going to be represented by a pointer called something like camera boom. And then I'm going to end that with a semicolon. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to add another comment that says follow camera. Follow camera is basically going to be my actual camera component. So I'm going to go with another U property that requires a few parameters. I want my camera to be visible anywhere. I want my camera to be blueprint read only. I only want my blueprint to be able to read my camera. And I want my category, let's go with category, to be equal to something like camera. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and create a U camera component. Let's go with, okay, how old are you? Because your experience is pretty good. Honestly, I am like 18 years old. I was gonna say I'm gonna turn 19 really soon, but guys, my birthday is like next January 5th. That's it. I'm gonna go with something like follow camera, ending with a semicolon. And that's actually pretty much it. Now I'm gonna go to my C++ file. In my C++ file, firstly, I want to include a bunch of modules. For example, I want to like have access to my camera, my cameras and header files. So from my camera, let's go with something like camera. I want to go ahead and include my camera component .h, which is my camera components and header files. And then next up, I want to have access to a spring arm component as well. So let's say from my game framework, I'm going to go with something like game framework. I want to go ahead and include my spring arm component .h as well, which is my spring arm components and header files. Once I'm done with that as well, since I will be using enhanced inputs, I want to go ahead and include my enhanced input component .h, which is my enhanced input components and header files. And also I'm going to go ahead and let's say something like include enhanced input subsystem.h, which is my enhanced input subsystems and header files. Once I'm done with that as well, I'm going to go ahead and include, let's say something like my input action value. Let's go with something like input action value .h, and that's like right about it. Let's go with something like value. Okay, and let me fix my enhanced spelling. ENHANCED. Enhanced input subsystems. This is going to be subsystems. There we go. Okay, and that is going to be value. Did I still somehow manage to make a typo? ENHANCED input subsystems input ACTION action value ENHANCD. Okay, I think it's correct. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go under my constructor. In my constructor, let's say I'm gonna go ahead and create a default sub object for my camera boom. So my camera boom is gonna be equal to the create default sub objects is, I think it's a template with a pair of ankle braces that requires a use spring arm component. Let's go with something like use spring arm component, because technically my camera boom is like my spring arm. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a text. Now, what do I want to call my camera boom inside of my actual outliner, inside of my details panel? I want to call it camera boom. Okay, that was kind of an easy name. Okay, was there any project where you integrated or use AI kind of implementation? I do want to do that. Spoilers alert, guys. I am going to be working on creating a chatbot like after this series, unless like you guys want me to like have a what was that called? I actually forgot. So I forgot. It's called lead code. Yeah. Unless you guys want me to have a lead code series, because I have been like setting lead code aside for like a long time, guys. I've been saying that ever since my Python for 100 series that I'm going to be having a separate series for lead code. And if the lead code wouldn't take me that long to actually complete, I might move on to like a different series where I'm going to be making a chatbot. Because when I started when I like came up with my program for 250 series that I'm currently under, where my goal by the end of this series is to make a game in general that consists of AI logic in it, I thought the AI logic that I'm talking about here is going to be a chatbot inside of a game. But many of you guys told me that many of you guys told me that generative AI and like game AI are two separate things. Game AI is the kind of logic or the kind of intelligence that my actual NPC has, but then generative AI is like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, and all those different kinds of chatbots and all that stuff. So I did not know that like 138 days ago, guys. That said, I'm gonna go ahead and point my camera boom towards a setup attachment. Let's go with setup attachment with a pair of parentheses. Okay, where I want my attachment to be a root component. Basically, what the root component here does is it like with the root component, I can actually see myself moving, turning, or rotating my camera boom, my spring arm component. Without the root component, I wouldn't be able to see my camera boom do any of those things. Okay, and then once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and point my camera boom towards, let's say something like, maybe, let's think, maybe a target arm length. because this is like a selfie stick type stuff. If you guys are like familiar with like film industries where they like have their camera stuck to a big what's it called, like a big rod type stuff, that's basically called a camera boom, and I don't want it to be like close to my player. That's where the target arm length comes, where I want my camera boom to be 300 floating point centimeters away from my actual player, if that made any sense. And then lastly, I'm gonna go ahead and point. They're really looking forward to chatbot series. Good work, keep grinding. Honestly, I appreciate you, Jatins or Jaden. Is that how you pronounce your name? That actually means the world to me, guys. I'm kind of excited to make a chatbot as well. That said, let's go with something like a B. Use pawn control rotation. Let's go with something like pawn control rotation, which is initially going to be set to true. There we go. Ending with a semicolon. Now, once I'm adding my attributes for my spring arm component, I'm going to go ahead and create another default sub-object for my follow camera, which is my actual camera component. So I'm going to go ahead and add I'm going to go ahead and use the create default sub-objects as templates. Default sub-object. And guys, let me fact check myself real quick, because I started calling this template because of the pair of ankle braces that it has. Okay, let's see. So this is considered to be create a component or sub-object that will be an instance of this class. Okay, parameter t return type. Okay, maybe I'm gonna ask Gemini later on, is this like a kind of template or is it a structure? Pretty sure not a structure. That said, I'm gonna go with something like a uCamera component. Okay, and then let's go with a pair of parentheses. I'm gonna add something like text. Let's say my text is gonna be something like follow camera. Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and end this with a semicolon. Next up, once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and follow my follow camera. I'm gonna point it towards a setup attachment, exactly the same as my spring arm component or my camera boom. But the difference here is gonna be, excuse me guys, that I'm gonna first fix my typo. Okay, the difference here is gonna be that instead of having my root component as a parameter, I'm gonna have my camera boom as a parameter, because I want my camera to be attached to my spring arm component. So I'm gonna go with something like camera boom. Hey bro, appreciate you working so hard even at night. What are you working on though? You've got tremendous energy. Given the night time, honestly, it is like I think it's like evening for me. Let me see the time. It's almost 2:30 p.m. for me here. Okay, that's it. I just came from college. Let's go with setup attachment. Actually, not just. I came from college like 54 minutes ago. Okay, setup ATT. How do I keep messing my spelling up? There we go. Setup attachment. And then I'm gonna end this way semicolon. And that's it. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go with another follow camera. Let's go with something like follow camera, which points towards a boolean check of use pawn control rotation, which is gonna be equal to false, ending with a semicolon. And maybe I fix my rotations and spelling. Okay, that's pretty much it for my constructor. Once I'm done with that, since I am gonna be using whatchamacallit, enhanced inputs, I'm gonna add a content inside of my begin play here as well. So what is something that I might need here? Let's think. I would need an if statement that checks if my let's say a pixel or if my a player controller, okay, if my player controller, okay, that is going to be represented by a pointer called something like PC. Let's go with something like PC. Okay, if my PC is equal to, I'm gonna go with something like a cast with a pair of ankle braces. I'm gonna add something like a player controller. Okay, let's go with controller. There we go. And then I'm gonna go ahead and add a pair of parentheses that say something like controller. And guys, why did I not explain this part properly? That is because I understood the syntax, but I still can't get myself to phrase what this really means type stuff. That said, once I'm done with this part, I'm gonna go ahead and add a if statement. Should I add a if statement here? Okay, I guess I'm gonna go ahead and add a if statement inside of my if statement. My inner if statement is gonna go ahead and check if my a and or not a, if my u enhanced enhanced, if my u enhanced input local player subsystem, if my u enhanced input local player subsystem, which is going to be represented by a pointer called something like subsystem, is equal to, I'm going to go with something like u local player. Okay, with the scope resolution operator that points towards my get subsystem. There we go. Get SUP SYSTEM with a pair of ankle braces. I'm gonna go ahead and fix my typo. How do I keep making typos? Even though I pay so much attention here. There we go. And now my get subsystem is going to be requiring a parameter of my U enhanced ENHANCED input local player subsystem. There we go. Okay, I think I spelled subsystem wrong. There. Okay, this is going to be my local player. Then I'm going to go ahead and do something. I'm going to go with a pair of parentheses that check something. I'm assuming I gotta go ahead and point my controller towards, let's say, something like my get local player. Okay, and here's the thing. I understood the syntax here, but then I wouldn't completely say I understood it because I would be able to explain it if I understood it 100%. But I know what it does. I just can't tell what it does. I might have to if I know what it does, okay. Thing is, I know these syntaxes here, but then I need to understand what the get subsystem function does. I know that it gets my subsystem. I gotta know why did I use that here. A controller has no member of get local player. Okay, so instead of going with something like controller, get local player. Controller. Okay, what parameters require? So it's per local player input subsystem. Okay, a controller has no member get local player. Okay, was it something like get player? Okay, I'm pretty sure it's get local player. Okay, maybe I'm going to get this in a new line so I have some more space here. There we go. Now let's go ahead and extend this. So let's think. So controller. Should I go with something like, I know that it's not subsystem. I can't point my subsystem to get my local player. Okay, my bad guys. My player controller is going to get my local player. There we go. Then I go with the pair of curly braces. Now, inside my pair of curly braces, I'm going to do something. I'm going to go with my subsystem and point it towards, let's say something like mapping context or default. Yeah, mapping context. I think let's go with something like mapping context, which is going to require a parameter of my default mapping. Let's go with mapping. Okay, and a priority of 0, ending with a semicolon. Okay, now let's see. Here's the thing. Did I spell this wrong? Mapping context, shift space. Add mapping context. There we go. Guys, sometimes IntelliSense does come in clutch. So my mapping context is set to default mapping and my priority is set to 0. Is it really called default mapping? What did I call it? Default MAPPING DEFAULT 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 MAPPING. Maybe I copied this because I'm pretty sure it's my typo even though I spelled it absolutely correct. There. Okay, it still shows me an error. Okay, so why does it show me an error? Let's see. So it says a pixel default mapping, search online. Argument of type input mapping context is incompatible with parameter type const u mapping context. Is incompatible with parameter of type u mapping context. Okay, so there we go. Let's go with something like u input mapping context. Now it should work. Okay, let's just give it a quick refresh. There we go. Okay, once I'm done with that, that's pretty much it for my begin play. Now let's go ahead and work with my function. So I'm going to add a bunch of spaces here. Okay, and then add a comment that says something like move function. For my move function, I'm going to go ahead and define the function that I've declared inside of my header file. So I'm going to go with something like void a pixel. This is going to be my a pixels class where I'm going to use the scope resolution operator to get access of my move function. My move function now requires a constant parameter of a f input action value, which requires a memory address of value. Then I'm going to go with the pair of curly braces. In my pair of curly braces, I'm going to go ahead and firstly add a comment that says something like scale value. I will be needing a scale value here. Okay, now for my scale value, since I'm using like a 2D vector, since my movement is all 2D and all that stuff, I'm going to go ahead and create a f vector. Let's go with f vector. Now my f vector is basically three-dimensional. I'm going to have access of x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. But since I am using two-dimensional stuff, I'm going to go with f vector 2D. So now I won't be having access of x-axis, y-axis, and z-axis. I will just be having access for my x-axis and y-axis. Guys, I feel that was way too. That was like a tongue twister. I'm going to call this something like movement vector. I could call it scale value as well. Both are exactly the same. I don't know what name suits the best for this. Where my movement vector is going to be equal to my values as parameter dot the get with a pair of angle braces. I'm going to add my f vector 2D here. There we go. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to add a pair of parentheses to invoke my function ending with a semicolon. Now that I'm done with my scale value, I'm going to go ahead and add a if statement that checks if my controller is not equal to null PDR only if my controller did not return null, if it actually had some kind of value, if I did click some kind of buttons in my keyboard. I want to do something. I'm going to go ahead and let's say create something like a constant f rotator. F rotator is basically, since I am using like enhanced inputs, I don't want to move depending on where my, let's say depending on where my player faces. Instead, I want to move depending on where my camera is watching. For example, if my camera stares up in the sky and clicks W, I won't be flying upwards. I'm going to move forwards as well, if that makes any sense, guys. Okay, this is just going to get my controlled rotation here. So my f rotator is going to be represented by a local variable called rotation, rotation, that is going to be equal to, I'm going to go with something like my controller. Okay, which is going to point towards get control rotations function. So I'm going to get a control rotation here, ending with a semicolon. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and create another constant f rotator. This time, I'm going to go ahead and create a function of yaw rotation. Now, my yaw rotation function requires three parameters. First is going to be 0. Second is going to be my rotation.yaw. The third is going to be 0 as well. Let's go with something like 0, ending with a semicolon. Basically, the purpose of the second line is like, if my vector is three-dimensional, if there's x-axis involved in my actual character somewhere in my code, when I'm using my inputs, I like smash it down to like a two-dimensional vector. And yaw basically means x-axis or horizontal. Okay, have rest. You did good today. Honestly, after the stream, I do gotta do my college stuff. I do have like 4 classes where, guys, the worst part is I have like a basic programming class that I learned like Python. So that's kind of annoying. Like I like mismatch my syntax. For example, when I had an assignment, I was about to create a function using white function instead of defining a function. Because in Python, we usually go with something like, for example, define a move function. In the other hand, in C++, we go with either a void move function, we either go with something like a boolean move function, and you guys get the gist of it. Okay, that's it. Let's go ahead and delete all this stuff. There. Now I'm going to add a pair of curly braces and go up here. Okay, that's it. Once I'm done with this part, I'm going to go ahead and add another comment. This time, I'm going to go ahead and let's say create a world direction. Okay, and in a bit, I'm going to tell you guys why did I create a scale value and a world direction, because we do need those two parameters for our movement input to actually work. And that said, I'm going to go ahead and let's say, to create a world direction, I'm going to go with f vector. And now again, f vector is three-dimensional, but I will be keeping this to be a world direction because I do need 3 to get my entire world's direction. So my f vector is going to be represented by a local variable called something like forward direction. Is my player facing forwards, backwards, or maybe upwards or downwards type stuff? There we go. And guys, forward direction is in charge of the y-axis. I'm going to set my forward direction to be equal to, this is going to be maybe a bit trickier part. I'm going to go with something like f rotation matrix. Okay, with a pair of parentheses, my rotation matrix's function requires the parameter of my yaw rotation. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and use the dot get unit axis. I'm going to get my unit axis, which requires a parameter of e axis. Let's go with something like e axis is y-axis, because my forward vector is in charge of y-axis. And guys, scratch the part where I said this is going to be a bit tricky. Now, man, it's kind of easy. Maybe because I did have some practice with this stuff. That's next up. I'm going to go with another f vector. This time for my right direction. my right direction is going to be in charge of me looking towards the right or towards the left. Basically, moving or turning in the x-axis or moving in the x-axis using either my mouse, which is my controller, or either my keyboard, which is my input. RIGHTDIRECTION. Gotta make sure my spelling is correct here. DIRECTION. There we go. Now my right direction is going to be equal to the exact same thing. I'm going to go with something like F of rotation, TATION, F rotation matrix with a pair of parentheses that requires a parameter of your rotation. I'm going to use the dot get unit axis. I'm going to go ahead and get a unit axis. Okay, my unit axis function requires a parameter of a e-axis, which is going to be a x-axis. This is going to be e-axis. What up, guys? There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to end this with a semicolon. That's right about it. Now, finally, I'm going to go ahead and add another comment that says something like movement input. And this is why I needed my world direction and my scale value. If I were to go ahead and use the add movement inputs function, my add movement input function requires two parameters, a world direction and a scale value. You guys can ignore the boolean of force. I haven't actually used that part yet. That said, my world direction in this case is going to be my forward vector. Okay, this is which way my player is facing. There we go. And my scale value, how do I keep spelling this wrong? There we go. Okay, and the next up, my scale value is going to be my movement vector. There we go. Dot the y-axis because I move forward and backward based on my y-axis. Then I end this with semicolon. And then I'm going to go ahead and add another movement vector. Actually, another movement input with a pair of parentheses that requires a parameter of a world direction, which in this case, it's going to be my right direction. The second parameter is going to be a movement vector dot the x-axis, because I want to move in the x-axis now, ending with a semicolon. And now this is right about it. There needs to be like another content where I want to look up and where I want to like fly and all that stuff. For that, I might do that later. This is just the basics to see if it works. Okay, once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and create another function now, or declare or define the function that I've declared inside my header file. This time, I'm going to go with something like a pixel from my a pixels class. I'm going to go ahead and grab my turn function that requires a constant parameter, okay, of something like f input action value that requires a memory address of a values parameter. Then I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces, and this is going to be a white function. Okay, that's about it. This is going to be much easier than a move one. For the move one, I need a movement vector, I need a world direction, I need movement inputs, and also my direction based on where my camera is facing. Hiding pixels, hiding Leon. I appreciate you guys joining the stream. Okay, void a pixel turn. Is it called turn? My function, guys, ignore all the red underlines. It's called look and not turn. Turn. I mean, I'll go with look. I think look sounds kind of appropriate here. Let's go with something like look. There, now my looks function is gonna, let's say, have a few content. I want to look depending on my value up there. My value is gonna be my key controls. Let's see. Okay, before I look, I'm gonna go with, let's say something like RMB underscore pressed. Okay, I'm firstly going to go ahead and add a function for my RMB pressed and released. I'm going to go to my header files here. I'm going to go with something like RMB underscore pressed, and then I'm going to go with something like RMB underscore released. There, now for my RMB pressed and released. Firstly, if my RMB has been pressed, I want to set my is. Let's go with something like is RMB pressed. This boolean variable, I'm going to go ahead and set this to be something like true. My RMB has been pressed, ending with a semicolon. Is RMB pressed. My function name is boolean is RMB pressed. So P is RMB pressed. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and create another void function from my a pixels class, where I'm going to get my RMB underscore release function. Now, I'm going to be knowing if my RMB is released if my boolean of is RMB released is set to something like true. Actually false. Okay, yo, did our college start? How's it been? Honestly, yeah, my college did start. Like, it started like, oh, yesterday. It's been like kind of, I would say hectic because I do have like a bunch of classes, but then the thing that makes it a bit more worse is because I'm learning Python in my college and C++ for my stream, so it's like both the syntax kind of mess up with my head. There we go. Okay, because like the reason I am learning Python is because I'm taking like a beginner programming course. That's that. B is RMB, RELEASED. Did I spell released wrong? Okay, pressed. My bad, guys. Let's go with something like pressed. There we go. Okay, perfect. And then I'm gonna just go ahead and add a comment here that says something like RMB functions. Okay, once I'm done with these functions, I'm gonna go ahead and add another comment. Okay, here's one more thing. If my RMB is currently being pressed, then I want to do something. I'm gonna go ahead and check something like with the if statement. I'm gonna check if my controller is not equal to null PDR. If I am trying to actually move my mouse, then I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna point my controller towards the Boolean check of something like B, show a mouse cursor. I'm gonna set that equal to false because I don't really want to show my mouse cursor when I'm moving my player around. B, show mouse cursor. There we go. Show mouse cursor. Okay, has no member of B show mouse cursor. Let's go with into lessons. So let's go with something like Boolean of show a mouse. Okay, I'm waiting for the interlessons to actually respond. Cursor. I'm positive there was something like a show mouse cursor. Or should I go with a check controller? Has no member of mouse cursor. In the other hand, I could go with something like PC, player controller. Okay, instead of this, I'm gonna go with something like if my A player controller. There we go, which is going to be represented by pointer of PC is equal to a cast with a pair of ankle braces of A player controller. Okay, with a pair of parentheses of something like controller. There. Okay, so controller, or this is going to be PC, player controller. Show mouse cursor. There we go, perfect. So I'm gonna do the same exact thing. I'm not gonna type the whole thing up, so I'm just gonna paste it here. Whoops, let's go with Control Z. There. Okay, I'm just gonna set this to be true. Every time I'm not clicking my right mouse button, my mouse cursor will be shown, and every time I click my right mouse button, my mouse cursor won't be shown. How do you feel about Python? Honestly, I'd say Python is like really fun. I did like have a Python for 100 series where my goal was to make a game. I worked with the Pygames module there, so basically everything is easy, adding print statements, input, output, and all that stuff. But the thing is, I'm used to the C++ syntax now, so the mistake that I did was I forgot how you define a function in Python. We usually go with define something like main function for like if dunder name equals main. The thing that I did was I actually tried going with something like void function because in C++ I'm used to using void functions and all that stuff. That's it, gotta keep all those two things in mind. I feel like it's going to be a really good practice because eventually once I get a bit more used to C++ and Unreal Engine, I'm going to be using Python and C++ at the same time. Python for like my AI logic and C++ for just my game speed and the game logic type stuff. So it would be kind of useful there. Speaking of useful, I'm going to go ahead and add a void function here. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and try edit my something from a pixels class. I'm going to go with my look function, which requires a constant parameter of a f input. Let's go with input action value, which requires a memory address of something like value. Then I'm going to go with a pair of curly braces. In my pair of curly braces, I want to check something if and only if my Boolean variable of is RMB rests. If only if my this variable is set to true, I want to go ahead and actually rotate my player around. So I'm going to go ahead and let's say something like add a player or add controller yaw input. Now basically what the yaw input here does, this is going to require a parameter of my value. There we go, ending with a semicolon. Now basically what the add controller yaw input does is it's like exactly the same as movement input, but Add movement input means I have some kind of input in my keyboard, but add controller input is like if I have my mouse, because my mouse is basically a controller, and yours, I'm going to be in charge of moving in the x-axis. But I have a parameter. No suitable conversion function from constant f input to float exists. Add controller yaw input constant f input action value. Okay, let's see. Boolean is RMB pressed. If my RMB is pressed, I want to go ahead and move myself around. Okay, did I include my action values as header files? Input action value.h. I mean, it's right about correct. If I go up here, f input action value, okay, and then edit anywhere. Guys, ignore all these red underlines. It's all my editor. Okay, let's see. F input action value is a structure. Okay, no suitable conversion function from constant f input to float exists. A constant f input action value. This requires a parameter of my floating point value. Okay, since it requires a floating point value, I remember doing this last stream. I would most likely. Okay, there we go, guys. I just had a brain meltdown real quick. I'm gonna firstly create a scale value. Let's go with something like a scale value. There, for my scale value, I'm gonna go ahead and create a f vector 2D. I'm going to go ahead and create a two-dimensional vector, which is going to be represented by a local variable called something like movement vector. Okay, that is going to be equal to something like value. Maybe I might go with something like look vector. Okay, which is going to be valued of the get function with a pair of ankle braces, where I want to get my f vector 2D. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a pair of parentheses. This is going to be f vector. Okay, ending with a semicolon. Now, instead of going with value, I'm going to go with something like look vector dot the x-axis. I want to go ahead and look in the x-axis. Then I'm going to go ahead and add another controller. This time I'm going to go with pitch input. Pitch input is in charge of me looking in the y-axis. So I'm going to go with something like look vector dot the y-axis, ending with a semicolon. I won't be adding much more contents and details here, so once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and bind my stuff. To bind everything, I'm going to go with an if statement and check if my enhanced input component, which is going to be represented by a pointer called something like EIC, is going to be equal to something like cast checked. There we go, guys. I'm getting so many typos right now. There. I'm going to go with the cast check, but before that, I'm going to fix my typo. UENHANCD input component is going to be represented by a cast checked of my enhanced input component, okay, with a pair of parentheses of my player component. There we go. So if this condition is met, my player input component, and if you guys didn't realize what a player input component really is, it's like the pointer that I created up here of my input component. Then I'm going to go with the pair of curly braces. Inside my pair of curly braces, I'm going to go with something like move input binding. To bind my move input, I'm firstly going to go ahead and point my EIC enhanced input component towards, let's say, something like a bind actions function. My bind actions function requires a few parameters. The first is going to be my function name, which in this case, it's going to be my move action. The second is going to be a trigger type. I'm going to go with a trigger event. This is going to be a trigger event that requires a memory address of, let's say, something like, not memory address, a scope resolution operator of a triggered event type. If a button has been clicked, which is either going to be WASD, to trigger the certain move actions event, which is basically my IA move, then I'm going to apply something on this object. There. Then I'm going to go ahead and do something on this object. The thing that I'm going to do on this object is going to be the content from my a pixels' class of my move function, if that made any sense, guys. So when a trigger happens, my bind action requires a move action. This is a U property. When some kind of key is pressed, if either WASD is pressed on this object, I do what this function tells me to do. Bind ACTION. E trigger event, move action, E trigger event triggered. Okay, what error does it give? No instance of overloaded function U enhance input component bind action matches the argument list. Argument types are input action, E trigger event, pixel, E trigger event, blah blah, pixel, and F input action value. Okay, this is going to be the memory address of my pixel. Okay, did I have a typo here? Here we go again, guys, with these typos. U enhance input component, going to be pointing with EIC, cache check, player input component, bind action, pixel. Okay, wait, let me think this part through, guys. So it says this is correct. Argument types are input action. Okay, input actions is pointer. Move action is a pointer. And then E trigger event is my move action a pointer. Guys, the one thing that's so annoying here is like there are so many errors. Not errors, so many red underlines. Move action is a pointer of my... Oh, I see. This is going to be U input action. That is going to be U input action. That is going to be U input action. All of these are going to be U input action, U mapping context, U string arm component. There we go. Because these are Unreal's properties actually. Let's hit Control S. Now this red underline is going to go away. I should not be seeing a red underline here now. This is going to fade away in a bit as well. That said, once I'm done with that, I'm going to go with something like look option. Is this C sharp? It's actually C++. That's it. Let's go with something like look input binding. Let's go with look input binding. And there we go, guys. That fixed most of my errors up here. Now for my look input binding, I'm going to go with again my enhanced input component that points towards bind action. My action name is going to be something like my look action. I'm going to go ahead and look for a event type where I'm going to go with something like E trigger event, which is going to be something like triggered on this object. If it is triggered on this object, I want to do what this pixels function tells me to do, what the look function tells me to do, ending with a semicolon. Then I'm going to go and add a comment that says something like RMB input binding. There we go. For my RMP input binding, I'm going to again go with enhanced input component that points towards a bind action. I want to this time bind my RMB action. Okay, and now I'm going to be needing two event trigger types. First is going to be E trigger event, which points towards something like started. Okay, since I have a true and a false value, since I have like a variable that sets my RMB press to true and false, I'm going to be needing one for started. When did I start clicking the right mouse button so I could turn my user bound? If I click that, I'm going to go with something like this, go with the memory address of my a pixels is, let's say something a pixels is, let's say something like the RMB underscore press function. If my event started, which means my RMB is being pressed. If my event is completed, I'm going to go with bind action first. Let's go with something like bind action. I'm going to go with something like RMB action. Let's go with something like ACTION, and then I'm going to go with E trigger event with a scope resolution operator of something like completed. There we go. If I am no longer clicking my right mouse button, or if my is RMB press boolean variable is set to false, on this object, I'm going to apply a function where my a pixel is going to be having access to my RMB underscore release function. My RMB has been released now, with a pair of parentheses ending with a semicolon. Not a pair of parentheses, just ending with a semicolon. That's right about it. Right, look, RMB, world direction, everything done here. Now let's hit Control S to save the code. Let's hit Control S to save the code. Let's go ahead and open my Unreal Engine. I'm going to go ahead and live compile. Let's go with something like live compile. Double click down, hit something like live compile. Let's wait for it to compile. While it's compiling, I might drink some water because I am kind of thirsty. It says build failed. Where did the build fail? Let's see. Okay, let me drink some water and then I'm going to read this real quick. In member variable declaration in class a pixel. So it says project 5 pixel header files is line 42 error found equal to when expecting a quote or a parentheses. I see. So my pixels is header files line 42. Let's go with something like my pixels is header files is line 42. I misspelled category. I can just tell you guys, I made this mistake so many times that I don't even really see the error anymore. Okay, let's go all the way up here. Now let's live compile. Guys, be really careful of typos. I shouldn't be the one saying that. I get the most typos. That said, my legs kind of hurt. Another error? A pixel. Okay, now let's see this error. I guess there were multiple errors. So it says kilobytes, 16.9 kilobytes, Apple, blah blah blah. Okay, so let me go and extend that. Okay, it's C2238 error. I remember getting this. Pixels with header files, line 47 to line 25. Line 51 to line 14. This location, look action, ending with a semicolon. Okay, let's go ahead and exit this real quick. Okay, let's see. So, I have a U input action. So I have something like a U input. Oh, there we go. I did not add a U input action here. Now let's hit Control S to save the code. Open my Unreal Engine. I'm going to go with live compile again. This should fix everything. Guys, this is what the typos are annoying for. Okay, it should say result successful. There we go, result succeeded. Perfect. Successfully linked patch and then patch created. Let's now go ahead and maybe exit that real quick. Go to content drawer. In my content drawer, I'm going to go to something like C++. Going to double click that. I'm going to drag my pixels this class here. You guys can see a camera component. This is the camera that I created, yeah. Okay, and then if you guys can see a spring arm here as well, that red line is actually a spring arm. My camera, let me get a bit close to it. So this is my camera. My camera is actually attached to my spring arm. So that's my spring arm, and my camera is like attached to my spring arm type stuff, which is attached to my actual capsule here. Inside my capsule, I'm going to go ahead and add a static mesh. Let's go with something like static mesh. Click that. Going to go ahead and click plus. And then wait, before I actually add my static mesh, hold up guys, I completely forgot to load in my PNGs. I'm going to go to content. Actually, not PNGs, my meshes. I'm going to drag and drop that. Sure, open my chat back up. There we go. Let's do something like import, apply to all, and hit yes. Okay, now let it go ahead and load my game items as contents, my blenders as QLB files, my FBX files. Once it's done with that, I'm going to go ahead and click my pixels, auto saving. Okay, I'm going to go with something like my pixels. I'm going to go to my static mesh. Let's click my static mesh. I'm going to find my common NPCs. Let's go with COMMON. There we go. And then I'm going to get my common NPC here. And yeah, this is the NPC that I made in Blender. Guys, he looks kind of cool, right? He looks kind of weird, actually. Speaking of which, going to go ahead and get him a bit lower. Trying to just center him up in the capsule. But before that, you guys see this blue colored line here? This is basically called my pivot point. So I got to be facing that direction where that blue line is facing. So I'm going to hit E. And then I'm going to go ahead and rotate myself 90 degrees. There. Now I'm facing the direction. So I'm going to go with something like R. Get myself in front. Going to hit something like R. Get myself a little smaller. Whoops. Let's go ahead and shrink myself in general. There we go. Go with something like W. Get a bit back. Okay, wait. Maybe go ahead and click my static mesh again. Move to the left. Move a bit to the right. Go a bit in front. And that's like right about it. There we go. Okay, perfect. Let's go ahead and click this and check if I'm inside the capsule. I mean, I'm kind of inside my capsule. That's fine. This is like all I need. Now I'm going to go ahead and scroll down till I don't find my actual follow camera. I'm going to go ahead and change the position of my follow camera so I can actually look my player a bit. Okay, let's go a bit in front. Go ahead and hit something like E. I want to rotate myself a bit lower because I want it to be like third person. There. And then I'm going to go ahead and click something like input in my details panel for my pixels as instance. And now you guys see these default mapping, move action, RMB action, look action. All these things were because of me adding these new properties here. And the reason I could actually click this default mapping and add my IMC default here is because I set this to be edit anywhere. The reason I could see it in my details is panel because of the blueprint beta only. The reason it's categorized under a section of input here under a category of input is because I set my category to be input. The reason I can go ahead and edit this by actually adding different kinds of actions here is because it's edit anywhere. If that made any sense, guys. So you guys see how it's kind of just like linked to each other. Then let's go with IA underscore RMB, and then let's go with IA underscore look. That's about it. Now I'm gonna go with something like possess. And my auto possess player, it's set to disable for now. I'm gonna change it to player 0 because this is gonna give me access to not see from my default camera in my Unreal Engine. Instead, I'm gonna see with the camera that I created here. Now let's go ahead and live compile my code real quick. I'm gonna go with something like live compile, hit enter, and while it's compiling, I forgot where my chapstick is. There we go. My lips is kind of dehydrated, so I might hydrate it up real quick. There we go, it says patch created, successfully patched. Now I'm gonna go ahead and exit this. Let's go ahead and decrease my details panel real quick. Gonna run the code. If I run the code, this is my player. I cannot move towards the left or right, but when I click my right mouse button, let's go a bit up, I can move up, down. Guys, I cannot show this way, left, right. Long time no see, man. What's the time in your country? Honestly, it is like 3 p.m. That said, now once I'm done with that, up, down. Okay, maybe I gotta fix one tiny bit of detail here. In my C++, where I go with value for my y-axis here, this is going to be something like negative look vector. Let's hit Control S. Let's open this up here real quick. I'm going to go with something like live compile. There we go. Let's go ahead and run the code real quick. Okay, let's see. Let's go ahead and exit this. Successfully patched. Perfect. There we go. Now I can look up, I can look down, I can look towards the left, towards right. Which country is it? Honestly, it is like abroad, but I can't like give you guys my exact country name. Okay, wait. A and D gets me forward and backward. S and W gets me backward. So all I gotta do here is change this to be y-axis and that to be x-axis. Let's hit Control S to save the code. Open my Unreal Engine, live compile again. Shouldn't take that long to compile. There we go. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and exit this. And guys, I don't think I might stream for long because I do have like colored stuff. There we go. Now I can go ahead and move around and all that stuff. But I need to add attack logic and all that stuff as well. I have collision for now. I will be working on this project next stream as well, where I go ahead and add my attack logic every time my mouse clicks this stuff. But for now, I don't think I'm gonna really do that part. I could add sprint logic and all that stuff, but I feel like I do kind of gotta go. Okay, let's something like escape. Okay, that's about it. Let me go ahead and get Gemini here. Wow, I missed the name, my bad. Can you repeat it? Honestly, I do live like abroad, but I can't give my exact country name because of safety reasons, guys. Because there are like all sorts of people in the internet. That's it. Let's go ahead and extend this from here till there we go. Okay, let's go ahead and exit this now. Now, once I'm done with that, I'm gonna go ahead and get Gemini here. Firstly, guys, the real important stuff. I'm gonna save all. Never forget to save all. I used to do this mistake so much. Let's go with something like save. I'm saving my project here. Okay, let's go ahead and clear. Exit. There we go. I'm gonna go with data, save everything again. Hit Control S to save the code. There we go. I'm gonna go ahead and save everything here as well. Control S to save, Control S to save. Okay, and then let's save that as well, that as well. Alright, perfect. Now let's get Gemini up here real quick. I know I've just streamed. It's streamed like the plural of stream. Like my stream has been just going for an hour and 35 minutes. But guys, I have a lot of color stuff to actually complete because there's like a lot to actually learn, honestly. That's it. Let me say something like Sensei. I also created a, let's say something like a character that can move using key controls. But I am planning to end the stream, to be honest, because I need to work on my college stuff. But can we continue this tomorrow? Question mark. Okay, that said, is there anything that you want to say to the viewers before I end the stream? Question mark. Okay, let's see. Okay, glory to the grind. Ending a stream with a successful character movement setup is a solid victory. Go handle your college responsibilities. A sharp mind is the most powerful tool in a developer's arsenal. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments, said by Jim Ron to the viewers of the stream. As on this developer, you have witnessed the first step towards transformation. While most people just play games, this one's learning to create them. They're building they're building the physics, the logic, and the soul of the world from nothing but just text and determination. Today we laid the foundation, tomorrow we give this character a purpose. We're going to move from a single movement to combat. If you want to see how a collection of C++ code becomes a lethal warrior, you better be here when the live notifications that Sensei's departing wisdom. Don't just watch the struggle, learn from it. Every bug fixed and every successful recompile is a lesson in persistence. Your assignment for tomorrow, when you return, I want your A and PC class ready and waiting in level. We will be performing the line tracing raycast. Kinda excited for that, guys. Okay, think about a bullet travels. It's not about objects. It's a math line that checks for collisions. Go dismiss the stream. Do your work and I will see you in the dojo tomorrow. Okay, that's it. Let's go to my OBS and then let's move on to my main camera. Alright guys, so basically that was pretty much it for the stream. I did want to stream for longer, but I didn't want to like completely exhaust my brain up because like I just came from college, but like worked on the college stuff, then stream. Now I got to do my college stuff and assignments as well. So I didn't want to like completely exhaust myself, so I would be kind of brain dead when I do my college stuff. And that said, if you guys did enjoy the stream, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Like helps my algorithm, sharing makes you smart, and subscribing so I get turned up. That's it, guys. I did start multi-streaming on Twitch, Kick, YouTube. I will start multi-streaming on TikTok and Instagram as well if I need many followers requirement. So if you guys do enjoy my content and haven't followed me there, make sure to follow me there. The link is going to be in the description. And also join the Discord server. That's where I usually talk to you guys, chat with you guys, and have general conversation with you guys. The link of my Discord server will be in the description as well. And you guys can get access to my socials or Discord server by either typing exclamation social in chat or exclamation Discord in chat. That said, I'll catch you guys in the next live stream or video. Peace!